Imagine a world plunged into near total darkness every single night. What really happened when the sun went down in the Middle Ages? Was it just fear and sleep? Or did a vibrant, albeit dangerous, world come to life? Welcome to our journey into medieval nightlife. For us, the flip of a switch banishes darkness. But for our medieval ancestors, sunset marked a profound shift. It wasn't just a change in lighting. It was a fundamental alteration of their reality, dictating everything from social customs to safety. The lack of artificial light meant the night was a realm shrouded in mystery, danger, and deeply ingrained fears. It shaped their daily routines, their social interactions, and even their very understanding of the world around them. In this video, we'll peel back the layers of misconception and explore the true activities, anxieties, and societal structures that emerged when the medieval world went dark. Prepare to see the Middle Ages in a whole new, albeit dim, light. Central to understanding medieval nightlife is the sheer scarcity and inefficiency of light. Forget electric bulbs or gas lamps. Their primary sources were rushlights, simply rushes dipped in animal fat, and tallow candles made from rendered animal fat. These produced a weak, flickering, smoky glow, barely illuminating a small radius. Beeswax candles were brighter and cleaner, but prohibitively expensive, reserved for churches and the very wealthy. Torches, made of wood and pitch, offered more light, but were dangerous, smoky, and temporary. This meant homes were often dimly lit, with the hearth fire providing the main source of light and warmth. Travel at night, even within a village, was a perilous venture. The impact of this pervasive darkness on medieval life cannot be overstated. It dictated schedules, limited activities, and profoundly shaped their perception of the world after dusk. With the sun down and limited light, most medieval households transitioned into a more intimate, domestic sphere. For the vast majority, this meant an early bedtime. After a simple evening meal, families would gather around the hearth, the primary source of light, warmth, and security. This was a time for storytelling, often moralistic tales or local legends passed down through generations. Women might engage in mending clothes or preparing food for the next day, their nimble fingers guided by the fire's glow. Children, if not already asleep, would listen to stories or play simple games. This quiet domesticity was a stark contrast to our modern evenings filled with screens and endless entertainment options. The rhythm of life was dictated by the sun and the practical constraints of their environment, making the home a sanctuary against the dark and dangerous world outside. The experience of night varied dramatically between the bustling, relatively speaking, towns and the vast, silent countryside. In rural areas, where the majority of the population lived, nightfall brought an almost absolute darkness, punctuated only by the moon or distant stars. The silence was profound, broken only by natural sounds, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves, or the howling of wolves. This was a time of heightened fear, fear of wild animals, of bandits, and most significantly of the supernatural. Superstitions about spirits, fairies, and malevolent creatures were rampant, believed to roam freely under the cloak of night. Social life was almost non-existent after dark. Villagers would retreat to their homes, often sharing beds for warmth and safety. The rural night was a time for sleep, prayer, and guarding against the unseen. In contrast to the quiet countryside, medieval towns offered a different, though still constrained, nocturnal experience. City gates would be locked at sunset, effectively sealing off the community until dawn. Curfews, known as couvre-feu or cover fire, were common, requiring citizens to extinguish their hearth fires and lights to prevent accidental blazes, a constant threat in timber-framed towns. While not entirely silent, urban nights were still far from our 24/7 world. The primary form of urban nightlife control came from the night watchman. These individuals, often citizens rotating duties or paid guards, patrolled the streets, calling out the hours, looking for fires, and deterring crime. Their calls, like "All's well and good" and "God preserve us," were a reassuring, if sometimes eerie, presence in the darkness. Despite their presence, dangers still lurked, but the communal structure offered a semblance of order. Perhaps the most vibrant centers of medieval nightlife were the taverns, alehouses, and inns. These establishments served as crucial social hubs, particularly for the working classes after a long day's labor. Here, by the flickering light of candles and the warmth of a roaring fire, people could escape the cold and darkness of their homes. Ale, a staple beverage safer than water, flowed freely, often consumed in vast quantities. Taverns were places for storytelling, gossip, gambling with dice or cards, and sometimes even impromptu music and dancing. They offered a rare opportunity for social mixing, though often segregated by class or gender within the space. While they provided much-needed camaraderie and entertainment, taverns could also be hotbeds of drunkenness, brawls, and petty crime, making them both alluring and potentially dangerous spaces after dark. Beyond the alehouses, many medieval towns, especially larger ones, had officially sanctioned brothels or stews. Prostitution, while morally condemned by the church, was often regulated and even taxed by municipal authorities. These establishments were typically confined to specific districts, sometimes explicitly located outside city walls or near the river, away from respectable homes. This pragmatic approach allowed authorities to control and profit from the trade, while also attempting to prevent it from spilling into general society. Brothels catered to a range of clientele, from traveling merchants to local laborers, providing a service that society, despite its moral reservations, implicitly accepted as a necessary evil. However, these places were also fraught with dangers, including violence, exploitation, and the rampant spread of disease, making them a perilous part of the medieval night's underbelly. The cloak of night provided ample opportunity for crime in the Middle Ages. With limited light and rudimentary law enforcement, Robbery, assault, and even murder were significant threats after sunset. Night watchmen, as we've discussed, offered some deterrence, but they were few, often unarmed, and easily overwhelmed. Dark alleys, unlit streets, and the general anonymity of night made criminals bolder. Traveling after dark was particularly risky, as bandits lurked on roads and in forests, preying on isolated travelers. Punishments for nighttime offenses were often severe, reflecting the heightened fear they provoked. If caught, a thief might face public shaming, mutilation, or even execution. The fear of crime profoundly shaped people's behavior, reinforcing the common practice of staying indoors, locking doors, and traveling in groups when absolutely necessary, making the night a truly dangerous time. While public entertainment was scarce after dark, private gatherings and performances certainly existed, especially among the wealthier classes. Nobles and wealthy merchants might host evening feasts in their great halls, illuminated by numerous beeswax candles and the glow of large fireplaces. These events could feature minstrels playing music, jesters performing comical routines, or storytellers reciting epic poems and chivalric romances. Even in more modest homes, families and friends would gather for informal entertainment. Board games like